morning, everyone, and welcome to my review of Moon Knight, Episode 4, Further Descent into Terrible Writing and Characterization. I'm on a bit of a time crunch this morning, so I hope you'll forgive me if I get right into it. So, as always, warning, spoilers ahead, if you care. We start off with an opening scene that has absolutely nothing to do with the rest of the episode, wherein one of the other avatars of the Egyptian godly court is carrying the small statue that Khonshu is now trapped in and placing it on a mantle somewhere. I suppose the only connection to this and the rest of the episode is it's reminding us that the gods can be trapped in tiny statues, because that'll come up sort of later. So then we get into the Marvel logo, Okay, and then we are returning to our protagonists as they are trapped out in the middle of the desert, in the middle of the night, after Khonshu and Stephen have done their, I don't know, moving the stars trick, because that was really necessary. You couldn't use an app to figure out where the stars were 2,000 years ago. Same complaints as last time. Anyway, so Stephen/Mark are unconscious, and Layla is having to tend to him. And as she is tending to him, what's off in the distance but some headlights? And then gunshots. Oh my gosh, they're being shot at. So you have two people out in the middle of the desert, unarmed, no defenses, being shot at by people who obviously want to kill them. All right, keep that in mind for a second, will you? They can't see them directly. They're at distance. All they know is they want to kill these people. Okay, so our heroes then roll themselves down a sand dune to get away from the truck with the mounted gun on the top. Now, I want to direct your attention to something. I don't know if I can even find the frame, because it happens so fast. It might be just dumb luck if I come across it. Yeah. Okay. So here's what happens that I can't show you by not playing the video. As the truck is coming down the hill, we get a brief, and I mean brief, shot of boxes of ammunition in the back of the truck. Okay. So we, the audience, know that the truck has boxes of ammunition in the back. At no point are our characters in a position where they could see this. But we, the audience, know this, so that apparently forgives what happens next. Anyway, so she rolls Stephen down the hill and leaves him there, off in the distance. He's over there lying down. She runs behind the truck that they came to this location in to hide behind it, and then gradually make her way into the back of the truck and inside the truck. Now, I don't know about you, but if I was charged with killing these people and I had a mounted 50 cal machine gun or something on top of a truck, and I'd already taken some pot shots at them to try to kill them, well, I don't know. Do you think you might shoot the truck that they're in, or the vehicle that they arrived in? You think you might do that? Yeah. So anyway, check around the truck. Why? Why check around the truck? You are there to murder these people. Just shoot it up. There's nowhere they could have gone. Right? The time between you saw them at the top of the sand dune and you got down to the bottom of the sand dune was less than 30 seconds. So really, if they are hiding somewhere, it's in the truck. Shoot the truck. But no, they don't shoot the truck. They're going to check around the truck. Okay, so while Layla's back here in the truck hiding, she finds that she has, I don't know if I can get the screen there, in the back of the truck there are flares, these giant, let's see, if I can get the, I hate this. I wish I could progress like frame by frame, but I can only do so much with what the app allows me. Anyway, in the back of the truck there are these giant road flares. And she grabs two of them. She lights one to get the truck's attention, because the truck went over and to check out Stephen. So the truck then slowly advances to the other truck, the hero truck. Why aren't you shooting the truck? I don't know. But they slowly go around the truck and find the flare is just lying there and there's no Layla there. Where could she have gone? Oh, I don't know. Around the truck, under the truck. Either way, she pops up from behind the truck and throws the flare. Can I find the frame here? You can see it kind of tiny in the back here. Anyway, she throws the flare into the boxes of ammunition. Remember the boxes of ammunition that she has absolutely no idea exist there? The boxes of ammunition that only we, the audience, had any idea were present in the back of that truck? Well, she has thrown her second flare into the back of the truck, into the boxes of ammunition, and the boxes of ammunition blow up, and apparently, I guess that's enough to kill both the driver and the gunman. And that's it. Layla saves the day. Mark finally wakes up, and then the two of them are off on a drive. They're off on a drive to go to the location of Ahmet's tomb, which they discovered through moving the stars in the sky in the previous episode using a magic laptop that can scan old, I don't know, vellum or whatever the heck it was, but can't have an app to figure out when star positions were at a particular point in time. And so this drive is a conversation between Stephen and Layla as Stephen and Layla bond or something. And Stephen explains to Layla, like, once we're done with this, Mark's going to go away and Stephen gets his body back. And Layla's like, that, and then he would just disappear from my life. And he's like, well, he kind of divorced you, right? And she's like, yeah, well, whatever. His suit was his best feature, wasn't it? What? It is a very awkward bonding. And here's the other thing. And I've heard other people say this in previous episodes, and I didn't really, I guess I was paying more attention to story movement and character logic. There really is no chemistry between these two actors. There really isn't. I don't get any sense of connection. You know, I understand that Stephen, the character, is not the person who was married to Layla, but the chemistry is just so absent, and it gets worse. And we'll see that. So they're driving and they're bonding and they're reminiscing or whatever. And then they get to a point where they have to get out on foot because there's a big wall, I guess, or something, or just an excuse to get them out of the truck. So then they go on a hike through the desert, through canyons and all very picturesque. And yeah, nothing really happens. They're walking, we're stopping. And they get to the campsite of Harrow and his minions, which is completely abandoned. There's nobody there. But they find evidence of a struggle and a fight. They find bullet casings. They find blood. They find a whole bunch of artifacts and things and stuff. And it becomes more relevant that Layla is the daughter of a famed archaeologist. Remember? Her dad was an archaeologist. Her dad died at one of his digs. And surprise, surprise, Mark was the one who was there when the guy died. And so I'm thinking about this as we go along. It's like, yeah, okay, so Layla is a black market artifacts dealer. She's the daughter of a famous archaeologist. She's from Egypt. She's an Egyptology expert of some sort, right? Okay. And Stephen, the character of Stephen here, is, as far as we know, only an expert in Egyptology from reading books. Just self-study. All right. And as far as we know, Stephen has only been in independent existence for several months now, since contact was broken off between Mark and Layla. Something like that. So he's been studying Egyptology from books for a few months. Just keep that in mind. We have someone who's raised in Egyptology and archaeology, and we have someone who is a bookworm on the subject. Anyway, so they're investigating the camp. They find, again, signs of a struggle, signs of violence, bullet casings, blood. Mark and Stephen have more arguments with each other about what they're going to do to try to help Layla. Layla grabs 2 more flares. We see her with 2 more flares, so keep that in mind. She's got 2 flares. Okay? Anyway, so they're looking around and they start talking and they start getting ready to rappel down into the tomb, and they start having a moment because it was funny there for a second because Layla was down on her knees and Stephen was like, Anyway, so then they have a moment where Layla says something to the effect of, "You smell just like him." She's saying this to Stephen, referring to Mark. And she says, "Well, I guess you would, wouldn't you?" And then she leans in for a kiss. And this moment where she's leaning in for a kiss to her, husband, more or less, it feels almost natural. It feels kind of organic. It feels like it belongs, right? Well, Stephen dodges out of the kiss because he feels compelled to tell her the truth about why Mark is doing what he's doing. As we learn at the end of episode 2, Mark is serving Khonshu primarily because Khonshu is threatening to take Layla as a new avatar if Mark doesn't work out. And so Stephen now tells Layla this is Mark's motivation for doing what he's doing. And Layla says something. I wish I could capture it. Let's see. Can I find it? Maybe not. Okay. Well, anyway, so she says something to the effect of, "I don't need protection. I need honesty." I don't need protection. I need honesty. So, so this is the same lady who in episode 2, being attacked by the cultists, is like, "Summon the suit." This is the same lady in episode 3 who is being shot at by a multitude of bullets, and Moon Knight had to envelop her in his cape to be a bullet sponge to protect her. I don't need protecting. I need honesty. Anyway, so they're looking at each other, and then Stephen leans in for the most awkward kiss you could imagine. Now look at this picture. This was the look on her face the entire time through the kiss. This was not the look on her face when she was leaning in earlier to, initiate the kiss. So either this is terrible acting on the part of the actress as to showing some kind of sense of romance or passion, or this is intentional and we are supposed to feel as cringy as it looks in watching this. But this cringe only occurs when Stephen leans in for the kiss and not Layla. So I don't know. It is completely out of place. It looks completely not right. And anyway, they rappel down into the tomb. Now, I want you to notice something real quick. You saw 2 flares in Layla's hands earlier, right? How many are here? Just keep that in mind. Unless I missed something, there's a lot of continuity issues here. Anyway, maybe that's it there. Okay, I take it back. I correct myself. She has 1 flare here, and there's the other one over there. Okay, so she still has the 2. All right, when I watched this originally, I thought it was a major continuity error. But anyway, so then they start going gaga over the statuary that they see. They see a sphinx. They see a whole bunch of hieroglyphics. They start geeking out over things a little bit and oh my gosh, I'm in Ahmet's tomb. And Layla starts saying things that make me think that this was what her father was looking for. If that was mentioned earlier in the series, I completely missed it because I have absolutely no connection to or notion of her father other than being referenced. We haven't seen a picture of him. We haven't had a flashback to give us some kind of context. So anyway, I guess Layla's father's grand quest was to find this tomb. I guess. Anyway, they're going through the tomb and going through the tomb. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they come into this crossroads. They also find some shell casings, which again indicate there was some kind of fighting. There was some kind of shooting going on. Why were the cultists shooting in the temple or the tomb? Anyway, Mark comes across this tablet and he starts drawing in the sand. And at first I thought he's just randomly doodling, but I guess he was tracing out a carving on the top of the casket or whatever. I guess. Even though this looks like it's completely hand-drawn and not... I don't know. Anyway, so they say that they're at a crossroads of 6 different paths. And then the two of them go over this ridiculously ham-handed exposition about the Eye of Horus, which again, is this a carving on the thing, or is he just doodling? Because the lines, I don't know. But anyway, he starts explaining how each of the parts of the Eye of Horus represent one of the senses. And there are 6 pathways, one for each of the senses. And I'm like, there's only 5 senses. That's why when you say the 6th sense, you're talking about something that is mystical, supernatural. What do you mean? What? So anyway, did you know that Ahmet's avatar was called the Voice of Ahmet? Well, then we have to go down the path that represents the voice. Which path is that? I don't know. They just pick one. It makes no sense. Like this glowing thing, so I guess this is pointing the way. I don't know. I didn't understand it when they explained it. I don't understand it now. Anyway, so they go down the path that apparently denotes the voice. Okay, so they come to this sort of sacrificial chamber thing where they got this altar and there's blood all over it, and there's all these like what do they call them, kentopic jars full of, you know how when they mummified somebody, they take out the brain and put it in one jar, and they take out the heart and put it in another jar. That's all going on here. You've got some mummy guys here on the wall and some hieroglyphics, and they're just looking around, and oh my gosh, why is it taking so long to load? Anyway, they see a lot of blood, and they see a lot of evidence of fighting and violence going on in here. And at the same time, I'm thinking, gosh, you guys have come down here unarmed, alone. You know they already have guns. They want to kill you. You're in an isolated, enclosed area, and you have no defenses. You don't have Khonshu anymore. You don't have Moon Knight. What was your plan? What was your plan? So anyway, they start going back and forth over ancient texts and what this means and this, that, and the other. And the other thing I have to mention is, again, they're both Egyptology experts of some sort or another, right? Especially Layla, who grew up in this. Why is Layla having to have explained to her? And I'm not doing a mansplaining thing, okay? This is not that argument. The argument is the characters as presented make no sense. If she is an expert in Egyptology, artifacts, etc., why is amateur sleuth Stephen having to explain to her what the Eye of Horus means, or what these hieroglyphics mean, or this means, or that means? I mean, it doesn't. Anyway, so they're saying that, so according to the ancient texts, Ahmet should be bound to an Ushapti. What is an Ushapti? I don't know, because I can't remember what that means. But apparently, and I didn't realize this until later, the Ushapti is just the tiny little statue that we saw Khonshu being bound into in the last episode. I mean, at least for my reference, I would have appreciated one of them saying, what's an Ushapti? But they both know Egyptology and Egyptian lore, and yet they both don't know the same stuff about it. And anyway, so they're looking for a tiny statue of Ahmet that supposedly Ahmet is sealed into. And so they're looking around. There's a platform above them that has a whole bunch of crazy stuff. So Stephen goes up there and he's looking around, and all of a sudden an evil mummy shows up carrying the body of one of Harrow's cultists, and he's going to start extracting his organs like a mummy. Now, why would he do this? I don't know. I was under the impression that mummification was to preserve someone's body and their organs into the afterlife as a ritual of reverence and respect. But apparently this mummy, evil creature, is going to start performing this operation on this guy who is effectively his victim. Because reasons. Anyway, he starts performing this weird mummification thing. And Layla is right next to him and starts moving around the altar. And of course, Stephen is up there doing nothing. He's just standing there. Layla is the one in danger. Layla doesn't need protecting. She needs honesty. So then she sneaks around the altar and tries to get out of his line of sight, but then the mummy catches her, but then Stephen screams and the mummy comes after him. He's like, "Oh my God, it's a mummy!" because I'm Stephen and I'm scared. And then he dumps like a I don't know what like a tray of something on it, or a big set of shelves on it, and he says, "I squished it. I squished it." So I guess the undead mummy zombie is now dead again because some wood fell on it. Ancient wood, thousands of year old wood, brittle. Anyway, so then Layla runs off in one direction and Stephen runs off in another direction because that makes sense. Let's split up. And so Layla comes to this giant like bridge cavern thing, and we're shown as the audience that she's in front of a giant hole that she almost ran into. And so what does she do? Well, remember, she's got 2 flares, and so she takes one flare and she lights it up. And I first had thought, okay, she's lighting up the flare to be able to see her pathway along this little very thin ledge, right? No, she lights up the flare. Can I even capture it here? Probably not. To throw it into the pit. To what? Underscore the fact that it's a deep, dark hole? Okay, so you've taken away one of your sources of light and a potential weapon and just tossed it into a hole. For no other reason than to indicate to us, the audience, that yes, that's a deep hole. Anyway, so she hears some noises from behind her and she starts making her way on the rickety ledge. And so now it's the quasi Indiana Jones scene of her getting across a ledge, and oh my God, the tension. And then evil, dark mummy hands start coming out to grab her. And then the mummy grabs her and pulls her into the crevice, and then she escapes, and then pulls her back in, and then she escapes again. And now she's struggling with mummy on the ground. Can I find the frame? Stupid Disney Plus. Anyway, yes. So mummy's got her on the ground. She takes her last flare and somehow ignites it with one hand and shoves it into the mummy's eye. And then they both roll off of the cliff. Right? They both roll off of the cliff. We see them both fall into the pit, but of course, at the last second, she somehow grabbed something. She didn't grab this ledge. She somehow grabbed something beneath this overhang, and then her hand comes up and pulls herself up to safety, even though just by looking at the way that they rolled off the ledge, there was no way she could have had a chance to grab onto anything before she would be dead. But hey, whatever. It's fine. It's fine. Anyway, so she crawls back up and she's about to leave. And then we cut back to Stephen. And Stephen and ostensibly Mark have just happened upon the tomb. Right? So Harrow and all of his cultists who have had days head start couldn't find this thing. But Stephen all of a sudden finds the grand tomb of Ahmet. And he starts having this conversation with Mark, and he's like, "Why did you tell Layla about, me trying to save her from Khonshu and blah, blah, blah." And so Stephen sneaks up on what is a sarcophagus. And he keeps exclaiming that some of the inscriptions on the sarcophagus are Macedonian. It's like, why would there be Macedonian carvings on here? I mean, unless, he always wanted people to call him Egyptian. Could this be the lost tomb of Alexander the Great? Sure, I guess, not being a history buff. I don't even know if that makes any sense whatsoever, or if Alexander's quote-unquote tomb is actually lost. But okay, sure, Alexander the Great's tomb. All right. And so we cut away from this to Harrow having a conversation with Layla. And we go back and forth once again with him tempting her with knowledge of the fate of her father, which all of us had already figured out a long time ago. Layla says something to the effect in here, which is hilarious. She says, "Men like you are always so condescending." And I'm like, men like what villains? Or what do you mean men like him? It just doesn't have any reference or context. So, and then Harrow starts saying things to her that only her father and her knew. Because you see, when Harrow grabbed Stephen's wrists and tested his scales back in episode 1, apparently he got knowledge from Stephen's or Mark's memories in that transfer. And he was able to detect all of Stephen/Mark's knowledge, memories, sins or something, and was then able to refer this stuff back to Layla. I didn't know he had that power. If he has that power, okay. Anyway, so he starts tempting her with knowledge about her father, like what her father used to call her as a kid and the stuff he wore and everything else. And then, he was really proud of you, and he'd be amazed with you standing in this tomb, this life's work completed by his daughter. And, she's like, "Oh, I have to listen to this super villain who's tried to kill us 7 times already." But okay. So she listens to Harrow. We go back to the sarcophagus. Now remember, Stephen is an armchair Egyptologist. He has this fanboy, complete notion about Egyptology and the Egypt gods and everything else. And he worked in a museum. And so he knows something about the importance of, delicacy, preservation, etc. when it comes to artifacts. So what does Stephen do? Well, he pushes the coffin open, the sarcophagus, the lid of which has to weigh an absolute ton, but Stephen just slides it aside. And then he's looking for the tiny little statue. But he doesn't see the statue, and so he says to himself, well... by the way, apparently Alexander the Great was Ahmet's avatar. That's why Alexander the Great is in Ahmet's tomb, because Alexander the Great was Ahmet's last avatar before her imprisonment. So he decides, well, he was known as Ahmet's voice, so there really can be only one place that the little statue would be. And so Stephen, Egyptologist, freak, museum employee, reaches into the tomb, rips the wrappings off of the skull of the mummy, breaks the jaw off, and then shoves his hand into the mummy's gullet, searching for the statue. Meanwhile, Layla's still listening to Harrow, and after a little bit of her making the realization, like the rest of us did, that Mark was present at the murder of her father, she then goes marching off into the caves. Because, yeah. Anyway, so Stephen reaches into the stomach of the mummy and pulls out the tiny little statue of Ahmet. So Ahmet, the god, is trapped inside this tiny little statue which he's now holding. And then Layla shows up. And Stephen's like, I found it. I had to go digging down old Alexander the Great's gullet, but I found it. Okay, so the murderous cult is right behind her. They have what they came for. They can stop all the evil that is about to take place with Harrow getting a hold of Ahmet. And what does Layla want to do? She wants to talk about her feelings. She wants to talk about her heartache at Mark for having lied to her about what he knew of her father's death. Okay? And when she says this, Mark suddenly takes over the body. Stephen lets go and Mark takes over. So now we're talking to Mark. Now, I hate to dwell on stereotypes, but do you recall maybe from 3 or 4 of my toxic masculinity videos where the claim is often made that men don't have emotions? Men suppress emotions. And my constant refrain in rejoinder is not so much as men have control over their emotions more often than not. They are naturally more inclined to withhold emotional outbursts unless or until it is a time appropriate for it. This falls into such stereotypes that I just was kind of dumbfounded, honestly. I would have thought that Disney Plus, of all places, would be trying to dissuade us all from such stereotypes. But no, in an emergency situation where death is looming upon them, instead of simply escaping and dealing with this conflict later, because talking about it now is not going to change anything, no, Layla keeps them there in this isolated room with the cult on their tails so she can talk about her sense of betrayal and heartache that Mark lied to her. And so now, we need to leave right now. I will explain everything, I swear, but we have to go. That is Mark talking, the sensible one. But no, Layla wants them to die. So she has to talk about her father now. And so he tells her the story, the long story about how he and his partner were raiding this camp or something. And then his partner went kablooey and shot everybody. And then the partner shot Steven too, Mark. The partner shot Mark when Mark tried to stop him. And I'm assuming that this is effectively the origin story of Moon Knight, that Mark was dying by a gunshot. Khonshu came and saved him, and that's how this all started. And as I'm listening to this, I'm thinking, an origin story might have been a better choice for a series than this, because I would have liked to have seen that. I would have liked to have seen that struggle, to see Mark Spector, the ruthless mercenary, have a change of heart and try to save someone's life and pay a price for it, and then be held to Khonshu's service as a result. That would have been an interesting thing to watch. That would have been very character building, but here we are. So anyway, he tells her the story, and she's mad at him, and she's really mad at him. And then, of course, all of a sudden the cultists show up. And the cultists all have guns. Lots of guns. And they don't have any guns, our heroes. All we have are Mark, who has grabbed a ritual little axe thing from the tomb to use as a weapon. But he's outnumbered now. Hero's like, give me the statue. Isn't it nice to be free of Khonshu? You can join me, etc. Darth Vader kind of thing. And then Mark attacks a couple of the gunmen, and he gets their guns out of their hands and throws the axe into one guy's chest. It all happens very quickly. Let's see if I can, And come on. I wish there was a frame advance on this thing, but there isn't. Anyway, Harrow, after having a couple of his guys wounded and or killed, shoots Mark. The entire time I'm sitting there watching this, I'm going just shoot him. Why are you talking to him? You've been trying to kill him this whole time. Just shoot. And then he does. I'm like, oh, thank goodness. Harrow shoots him once in the chest, and then twice in the chest. And then Steven/Mark falls backwards into a pool of water that somehow is still here after 2,000 years of sitting out in the desert. I don't know how that works, but whatever. And then he is dying. And we see him sort of mystically start floating off towards the light. And then we cut to an aspect ratio change in the screen to old 3:4 television with a cheap jungle set. And we have a kid and a quasi-Indiana Jones explorer walking around looking at stuff, and a skeleton and all that. And they're looking for a treasure. And it's very, very cheaply Indiana Jones. And then the kid calls him Dr. Stephen Grant. Okay, and then we back up, and it's an old TV show on a television. And we back up more, and we're in a psych ward. And here's our human statue from the first couple episodes. Remember the human statue that Stephen was always talking to? And here's all these other characters, some of whom are recognizable as background characters from elsewhere in the series so far. Wow, that's really weird. How is that? And then there's Steven's manager from the museum. Oh my gosh. And she's holding this little scarab toy thing, right? Okay. And then we look around more, and there's more little things that indicate what? There's all these hints of stuff from the show. Like this lady's drawing a picture of Khonshu, of like this bird-skulled man. Oh my gosh, it's almost as if everything around, there's the goldfish. Holy cow. You know what this is? This is a reverse verbal Kint. This is a reverse Kaiser Soze, everybody. You see, Mark's been in a chair, drooling in a psych ward this whole time, and everything about the story that he has in his head about what happened is all a dream brought up by all these things around him that are informing his imagination. Right? And there's Layla. Layla's another patient in the psych ward. She's just kind of there. Right? Oh yeah, she's another character in his little fantasy, I guess. And so, and he's been holding on to this little action figure the whole time that just happens to look like Moon Knight for no particular reason. I guess he was imagining himself to be Moon Knight. Oh, and also his ankle is strapped to the wheelchair, kind of like his ankle was strapped to the bed. Are you getting it? Here's an orderly who just happened to also be Harrow's second in command, the guy who was being gutted by the mummy earlier. Oh, okay, so everything we've seen so far has just been a dream, just been a delusion. And then, of course, we have Mark sitting in front of his therapist, his doctor. And who could his therapist/doctor be? Why, it's Arthur Harrow. Oh, and there's a painting on the wall of the little Bavarian town where he first discovered himself to be losing his memory or whatever and being attacked by the cult. It's amazing. Everything's explained here. He's in a weird, completely white psych ward thing, which has Egyptology and Egyptian accoutrement all over the place. Just happens to do that because, and there's a cane, right? I mean, it's not the cane that Harrow was using, but it's a cane. Yeah. Oh, gosh, it's all coming together now. This is all a dream. Everything that we've seen in the 3 episodes up to this point, in the 4th episode, it's all made up. There's a pyramid. Oh, my gosh. Well, I guess we've just been watching a fantasy the whole time, right, guys? Anyway, so Mark, Steven, whatever, he escapes and runs through the hallways trying to find a way out, and then the hallway itself becomes, infinite. It stretches out and everything's shaking around. And he gets into a room and he finds a sarcophagus sitting in the room, just happens to be sitting there. And then the sarcophagus is knocking and knocking, and he opens it up, and who pops out? But Steven as a separate entity. And then they hug because they like each other now all of a sudden. And now we got to get out of here, guy. We have to escape. Okay, what's the last thing you remember? He's like, Harrow shot us. He's like, yes, okay, I wasn't dreaming that. Because seeing a duplicate of myself means that I'm sane. Anyway, the two of them run down a hallway, and they come across another sarcophagus that is just rattling and thumping and bumping like something wants to get out. But they ignore that one, even though I'm assuming, because we're still waiting for it, for those of us that know even the slightest bit about Moon Knight, we're waiting for his third personality to show up, the one that would kill people without thinking about it twice, Jake Lockley. I'm assuming he's in there, but who knows? We're passing that up for now. And they're running down the hallway, and then they get to the doors, and then at the doors is the hippo god something. Is that the half tour or whatever? Anyway, the hippo god stares at them and then says, "Hi," in a really high-pitched voice. And then they both scream, "Ah!" And then we cut to black. So, yeah, we went from really bad Indiana Jones parody to, 12 Monkeys, Usual Suspects, It's All a Dream, Dallas season 4 or whatever. I don't know. Yeah, the characters make no sense. The plot progression makes no sense. There's no sense of tension because the villains don't do what the villains you would assume would do, like shooting up a car. That opening scene is so ridiculous to me. It set the tone for everything else. I was just let down from that opening scene and forward. You know, even though these are stories, well, not stories, but it's their episodes in order, and each one moves off the next, I try to think to myself, maybe the next episode was written by someone who knows what they're doing. Or maybe the next episode was edited in such a way that things make sense. But no. And so that's episode 4 of Moon Knight. Another dazzling disappointment. The first 2 episodes of this series, not bad. Not great, but not bad. You know, promising, interesting, had some stuff going for it. Episode 3, episode 4. So I can only assume where episode 5 and 6 are going to go. There's only 2 episodes left. And yeah, that's it. There's no scene at the end. There's no post-credit scene. It's just the credits and, you know, the little visual indicators of different things in the story and the plot. The wedding ring, the 3 faces of Mark Spector. We've only seen 2 so far. Where's number 3? So there you go. That's my review. My review is the quality of this show took a dive in episode 3, and it's only going more downhill. The characters are not believable. The villains are not believable. The logic of the story and of the characters as presented make no sense. They do stupid things that are blatantly stupid, and not like mistakes that anybody could make kind of thing, you know, slipping on a banana peel or something. No, this is, we have cultists breathing down our neck. Right now I want to talk about my feelings. Are you kidding me? Well, obviously you're not. The only thing in this entire episode that made any sense whatsoever as far as characters were concerned is Harrow shooting Mark, which came 7 beats too late as far as I'm concerned, but at least he did it. It's not going to last, obviously, but at least he did it. So, where could episode 5 take us? I don't know. Has it all been a dream? Is he now in some kind of afterlife delusion? I don't know. I'm not sure that I care. But I'll be back here next week watching the next one either way, because, hey, what else do I have to do, right? I'll take a second to say some hellos, and then I'll wrap up. Funtime Bats, Jaeger Pony, Corey Suzuki, Mike Savage, Iron Man, Texas Attorney General, Secret Agent. Let's see. Who else is here? Kiefer Dam and Random American. Good morning. I'll, even though it's a little late in the game to do so, I will post the GoFundMes from Kiefer Dam onto the top of the chat box for Shady Grin, Angry Illinoisian, and his kitten, all friends of the show who they themselves and their families and loved ones could use your help if you have a second or two to take a look. Let's see. What's Iron Man got to say? If you want to see that Mike, then go to Deadpool for real. That's referring to something somebody else said. Everyone in the chat, dislike this idiot kid in his video right now, and you will get $100,000 in cash plus an autograph from me and my wife, Pepper Potts. I'm a kid? I'm a kid. What? I've given Kamala Khan her $100,000 for her to use in her college degree and join as an Avenger with me, Hulk, Thor, Captain, Wasp, and Spider-Man plus Kamala Khan, a.k.a. Miss Marvel. True story, children in the chat. So start dislike this video now, and you too earn $100,000 in real cash to use for your college to choose. Oh boy. Those comments I just read were a far more intriguing story than anything that occurred in this episode of Moon Knight. So maybe I added to your day. Maybe I didn't. Either way, guys, thank you for joining me. Keeping this short because I have to get back to the wonderful world of work. If you'd like to hear more from me, you can find me here tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern for TED Excellence, where this week I will take a look at the first viewer's choice selection for TED Excellence, where I look at the math and magic of origami and try to make something out of that. And then further on into the week on Sunday, you can find me here as well for the Sunday stream at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern, while I'll look at a thing, maybe part 2 of the Spies who diversified me? Guess we'll find out then. But until then, everybody, hope you have a good rest of your week. I hope you are all safe and well. If you are not well, please get well soon, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.